Hello, everyone. My name is Ralph Creviso, and I'm joining you with Henry Fogel in our first video in the first week of the first course. We want to take a minute to give you an orientation to the program, to give you a short overview, but more importantly, to tell you why the program exists and how we think you can benefit from it. We're going to dispense with giving you a bio because our bios and our pictures are in Blackboard and you can read them. We'd be happy to share any questions you have about us. But I think it's more important that we talk first about why the program was created and why it's unique. Henry?
Absolutely. I will say that both Ralph and I have spent decades, not years, decades in the performing arts world, both as administrators, as consultants, and as board members. So we've seen the full breadth of the performing arts field. And when I became the dean of the Chicago College of Performing Arts at Roosevelt in 2009, I started thinking about the need that I felt existed for a real performing arts management master's training program. The arts management programs at most American universities and colleges are taught by people who've never actually managed arts institutions. And that struck me as a gaping hole. And so I decided to try to put together a program that would be taught by practitioners. And knowing Ralph, and we've known each other for well over 20 years, I asked Ralph if he would direct this program, which he has done up until now. It's funny, right as we're talking to you, we're in the act of switching. Ralph will remain on the faculty and I will become the director, something I couldn't have done when I was also the dean. The program was created because both Ralph and I have noticed a very, very shallow pool of talent in arts administration. And both of us have worked in different ways on searches for executive directors and found a really, really thin pool of talent. And so we hope that this program will help that by creating a larger pool of tomorrow's leaders.
And to take the cue from that, when Henry and I talked about this program, Henry made it very clear, in order to remain relevant and create a unique kind of a program, having it taught by practitioners was absolutely essential. So the faculty that we have put together are very high-ranking officers working in prestigious performing arts organizations. And they are not only experts in their field, but they're experts and successful in performing the functions of their field. And they'll be sharing with you their view of a practitioner's perspective of how to understand that particular subject matter. So for example, finance, the Chief Operating Officer of the New York Philharmonic will actually share with you a comparison of budgets of the New York Philharmonic from 1935 to the current, and how budgets are built, and why it's important to understand them and the elements that go into them. And each course is fashioned that way, and each faculty member is unique as a practitioner. And the ultimate goal of this program is to provide you with the knowledge that when you go out in the world and assume your first or next job in performing arts, you'll be positioned to move up that career ladder to fill the vacancies that today are filled by people who don't have the full breadth of a practitioner's perspective.
I'd like to add one thing. It's kind of the, if you will, the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is called pandemic. At first blush, it seems almost silly to be talking about managing performing arts institutions without seriously covering this current coronavirus crisis, and it is a crisis. The reality is nobody knows how long it's going to go on, what shape it's going to take. And I would say nobody as of now, as of the middle of June 2020, there's nobody who can tell you, oh, I know how we're going to come through this and how we're going to solve it. Our role in this course is to try to give you the tools that will help you be part of and ultimately lead an organization that is facing and trying to solve a situation of this drastic nature. We will be talking to you about managing staff, dealing with employees, working with the board, managing all of the different stakeholders that arts organizations have, which is what makes managing an arts organization different from managing a corporation.
And Henry, having in my career, I worked in the private sector for 17 years, and I've worked as consultant to performing arts for at least that long. And the differences between those organizations are very interesting. In many, many respects, they are similar, but in more critical respects, they're different. And in this program, particularly in the courses that Henry and I will teach over the next month, you'll actually be in exercises where you'll get to understand what those differences are and why those differences exist. But Henry has a funny story to tell about a board chair that he had. And I'd like Henry to relay that story.
Oh, sure. It was Dick Thomas, Richard Thomas, who was the chairman and CEO of the First National Bank of Chicago. That bank doesn't exist anymore because he successfully arranged for it to be bought. It's now part of Citibank. Sorry, it's now part of Chase. I apologize. Dick was, as I say, CEO of that bank, which at the time was the 8th largest bank in the United States. Not a small corporate job. After his 4-year tenure, we sat down over our last sort of farewell breakfast, and he said to me, one thing I've learned, Henry, is that we in the corporate world don't really understand what you do. I really believe that if I spent 4 or 5 years teaching you the ins and outs of banking, you could do my job. You could be the chairman of First Chicago. If you spent a similar amount of time teaching me the orchestral world, and let's assume that I knew enough about music, I could not do your job. Now, that's not because I think you're smarter than I am, Henry. I think we're both smart. He said, I don't have the temperament, the personality trait required for your job. When I come in the end, I'm the CEO, and I make a decision. I listen if I want to other people, and then I say, okay, do it. And they do it. It doesn't work that way. And you're a music director. You have many, many more board members, and the boards are far more deeply involved than corporate boards, and they all are your boss. And on corporate boards, the board members kind of know the business. In the orchestra or arts world, the board members don't know that business. They know their business. And you also, everything you do is much more visible publicly. And for that reason, I wouldn't have the patience to do your job. And that was a real moment for me, not of patting myself on the back, but of learning, indeed, one of the traits that is required in this field is patience and also empathy, the ability to understand where other people whose views are different from yours, where they're coming from. You cannot just roll over them the way you could if you were a corporate CEO.
And there's another interesting part of the distinction, and that is managing in a corporate environment. It's a hierarchical top-down. In a performing arts organization, the stakeholders are below you. You manage them, staff. Stakeholders include an artistic director who may be your peer, but you have to manage that function. And there's a board which doesn't act as a corporate board. They're volunteers, they're not paid, and they want you to do the job, to run it, but sometimes they think they know it better, and you have to manage up.
Right.
And each of these requires a different skill set of manage up, manage down, manage across. That is unique to performing arts, and we'll give you illustrations of that throughout the course.
Yeah, I mean, if you're managing something like an orchestra or an opera company that has a large number of artists, or maybe a theater company that has a resident company, you also have to always remember that the business is about them. It's not about you. One of the things I've always liked to say in this course every year is nobody will ever buy a ticket to see you manage. So, Ralph, we're beginning to run short on the time that we've tried to allot ourselves so that we don't make our students weary.
Let me end the video by saying you'll have videos from each faculty member introducing themselves. You'll see Henry and I on another video giving you some content for this week. And then you'll see us back for a Zoom session for this course on Saturday, for 4:55 on Sunday. So good luck in the course, and we look forward to seeing you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ralph.